Threads of Enlightenment. We have Kay as our guest today. And as usual, that what we do here at Threads of Enlightenment is our guests. We consider it a privilege that they are able to share with us their wisdom as to how they got to where they are today, the processes, the all the tools that they utilize in order to become who they are today. So I'm going to let Kay introduce herself, and then we will hear her story, and then we will get a chance to get the backstory, as I say, and we can all learn from her as she share with us her wisdom. Kay, welcome.
Thank you for having me on here, Ken. I really appreciate it. And oh my goodness, I have been looking forward to this definitely. So a little bit
Indeed.
about myself. I am based in London, UK. Been
Mhm.
born up, brought up, and bred here. I have traveled. I've had the luxury of traveling all over the world before the pandemic happened for about 5 years, and was living out of a suitcase, which I absolutely love. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I don't like sticking in one place. And so when the pandemic happened and I got stuck in one place, I'm like, oh my goodness, I was pulling out my hair. Um, but prior to that, it's been a journey, Ken. It has definitely been a journey.
Mhm.
I mean, going from a 9 to 5 job and then jumping into building my own business, I did not know what to expect. And
Mhm.
so I started off, step by step. I'm actually an award-winning author. I have my copy of my book in the private royal library for the Queen of England, who actually wrote me a letter to tell me that she's got a copy of my book in there. I
Very
was super
glad.
excited
I'm
about that.
glad.
I've actually created a company called Uncensored Society. I am
Mhm.
a business coach as well, and I actually teach people on five main pillars of business, which is sales, marketing, finance, operations, and leadership. Not forgetting about mindset and career and life balance. Also, I have my own podcast. Again, that's called Uncensored Society Podcast. I have my own podcast editing agency as well, which is called MakeYourMarkAgency.com. So there is a lot of different things going on. I'm also a speaker. I speak on digital events, not live events as of yet, because of the
Mhm.
pandemic. But yeah, there is many different things going on at the moment.
I'm excited. You packed a wonderful resume, and as I read all the things about the Queen and what she did, know that must have been an honor to have that. Because as I mentioned to you, I'm from British Guiana. We refer to her as the Queen Mom. So excited that you had that take place in your life. But I wanted to talk about. You mentioned that you're doing so much, and that it's been a journey, and that's what I'm interested in. I know my listeners are interested in the journey because the place of where you are today is beautiful. It's just magnificent. All the things that you're doing, but you did not start there. And so I want to find out what happened. And I always say to people that we are in this zombie state until something happens to us, most of us, and it shakes us to the core. And then we begin to do the things that are necessary to grow. And those things usually start with a question. Now, Kay, what was your incident? And I always tell people they are usually breadcrumbs, which we don't notice. We're not living in awareness, but in the matrix, as they say. But once we begin to get that shaken and we are now awakened, what was your situation that caused that?
Oh my God, Ken. So there were many situations, right? And so, and like you said, at the time when I was in it, I didn't know what was going on. But one of
Hmm.
the things that I did learn was that, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, right?
Hmm.
So that's one of the things that I've learned. Now, going back a bit, my 20s is basically where it all started, where I was trying to figure out what I really wanted. And so the biggest lesson here is that you don't need to have it figured out from the beginning,
Hmm.
right? When people tell you what you want to be when you grow up, you don't need to have the answer, because that's what life is about, is trying to figure out what it is that you're passionate about and that you want, and striving for that. And so when
Hmm.
people ask me what I wanted to be when I was, when I'm older, I told them I wanted to be rich. I didn't know how, I didn't
Yeah.
know when, I didn't have a clue, right? I didn't
Hmm.
know what I wanted to be when I was older. In fact, when I was applying for university, I did not know what to apply for. I knew I wanted to go to university, but no idea
Mhm.
what course I wanted to do because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was older. And so I literally, any parent that's listening to this, they're going to think, oh my goodness, how did she do this? But I literally remember going to the library, pulling up all these courses and scrolling down, closing my eyes and just pointing to the screen. And wherever my finger landed on was what I studied, right? And it happened to be law and criminology. And so I went and studied that. To be fair, I absolutely hated it. It was boring. I wanted to drop out. And I didn't. I just kept going because my friends pushed me to keep going, right? If I could change things, I would go back
Mhm.
and change that all because I hated my life in university. It was absolutely awful. I was bored out of my head. But at the end of the day, I got my degree. And so I got my degree and I
Mhm.
still was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to be. All I know is I want to make some serious
Mhm.
money.
Wow.
And so in
Mhm.
my 20s, I was going from job to job to job to job, like each one being completely different to the other. Like I worked in a magistrate's court for a little while. Then I worked in a college. Then I worked as a youth in a youth center interpreting for deaf children. And then I was a hairdresser.
Wow.
And then I was an MMA fighter.
Wow.
And then I worked as a bookkeeper without any qualifications, right? But they hired me as a bookkeeper. I learned on the job. And then I became a police officer, right? Then worked in politics as a campaign manager. And a lot of these different jobs, Ken, I had no qualifications, no experience. I don't know why these people hired me, but they did. And a lot of the time I just learned on the job. And you know what it was? It was
Mhm.
I need that challenge. I need that
Yeah.
next point to progress. And once I learned that skill, I was like, okay, what's next? What do I do now?
Mhm.
Right. And
Yeah.
then just jumped into something else that was even different to the thing that I was doing before. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't until I became an MMA fighter, right, that
Mhm.
I decided, oh my goodness, I love this, right? Because beating the shit out of people is so much fun, right? And so I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is my career. I found it. And so
Mhm.
I was training and training, and I absolutely loved it. And then my coach told me that, Kay, you're ready. I'm ready for what? He goes, you're ready for your first official fight. And I'm
Mhm.
like, no way. He goes, yes. He goes, we're going to set out a date, and your first fight is going to be in Thailand. And I was
Wow.
like so excited for this. I trained even harder. And then
Mhm.
it happened. I ended
Wow.
up in hospital.
Wow.
I ended up in
Because the training?
hospital through training, right? Basically had my collarbone jabbed into my neck. My entire spine was
Wow.
altered. My hip, my knee, my ankle was all out of line. And I remember the doctors telling me that if I carry on fighting, then I will end up paralyzed. And so at that point, I was like, holy crap, I got to stop doing this. I've got to find something else. And ended
Mhm.
up back to square one again, trying to figure
Mhm.
out what do I do now.
Mhm.
And so I decided to go online and just find out what is out there. What do people really need right now? What could I do?
Yeah.
And so I came across, this huge marketing campaign where they were looking for police officers. And Ken, I applied, but I applied on a complete joke, right? I never thought I would get in, right? Because what you don't see right now is that I'm actually 4'11", right? So I'm tiny. And so I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get through this. It's not gonna happen, but let me apply anyway. A few
Mhm.
weeks later, I've got forms through the door from the Metropolitan Police saying that, we want you to fill out these forms. It's basically a vetting form, for you and your
Yeah. Yeah.
family and all of that. And I was like, all right, let me just do it and send it off. Sent
Mhm.
it off. And then they came back with another letter saying that, oh, we want to invite you to a day one assessment. And I'm like, what? Okay. And I actually went to my mum and I was like, Mum, should I even bother going? And my mom's like, oh, just go, see what it's like. If you don't get it, you don't get it. Nothing, you're not worse off. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Went there. And I'll tell you something, this was an experience in itself. It was nothing like a normal interview. It was a
Mm-hmm.
whole day thing. There were hundreds of people there, and I had to do role plays. I had to do a sitting exam. I had to do a one-on-one interview. Like, I remember when the role play started, they basically said, right, when the alarm goes off, go and stand in front of that particular door, and then the
Mm-hmm.
second alarm will go off, and that's when you enter. And what
Mm-hmm.
it was is, you behind this closed door, something was going on. They didn't tell you what. You couldn't
What?
prepare yourself, but whatever was happening in this room, you had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second alarm went off. I walked into the store and I had this huge man that was at 7 foot tall screaming and shouting at me. Right. And I saw
Uh-huh.
this lady in the corner with a stop clock timing me to how quick I can
Yeah.
diffuse the situation.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they don't prepare you for this, right? They
Mm-hmm.
just want to see what kind of
Mm-hmm.
skills you currently have.
Nice.
And so I had this huge guy and I wasn't expecting it. And I'm 4'11". I'm like, oh my goodness, he just needs to stamp on me like a fly, right? And so I managed to calm him down. I sat him down. I took a statement from him. Find out what the issue was.
Yeah.
How we
Mm-hmm.
can best solve this. And he ended up calming down. And then the third alarm went, which was my time was up and I need to walk out of the room.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then they said to me, right, you got another role play to do. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. Right. They're like, go and
Mm-hmm.
stand by this other door. When the alarm goes off, you walk in. And I was like, right, I'm ready for this huge guy that's going to come at me. Right. I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay,
Yeah.
good. Walked into the door. Oh my God, it was a different situation. I had a little woman crying. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, she's crying because she went to the shopping mall and has lost her child.
Okay.
So now I had to now diffuse this. Again, there was a lady in the corner with a stop clock and
With
had to kind of
someone.
calm her down, get a description of the kid when she last saw him, how long ago it was,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
reassure her, tell her that we're going to find him, we're going to be checking the CCTV cameras, all this kind of stuff. The third alarm went, had to walk back out. And by that time, I was like, I'm done. It was just the morning, but I was done. Right? And so it was super, super intense. And that was just the first part. I could go on what happened the rest of the
Oh,
day, but at
wow.
the end of the day, I was shattered. I couldn't wait to get home. My mind was like crisp. And then I was like, yeah, I'm never going to get through. It's not going to happen. A few weeks later, I got another letter saying I passed and they want me to come for a day 2 assessment. And I'm like, really? And now it was like the physical side of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to do the running test, and it's the bleep test.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to pick up 35 kilograms.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, at this point, I myself at 4'11" was 70 kilograms, right? So I had to be able to pick up half my weight.
Oh.
And so I'm like, should I do this? Shouldn't I? And again, my mom was like, well, just do it.
Yeah, just do
You
it.
don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to hit the gym, do a lot of running, a lot of, picking
Yeah.
up weights and stuff like that. And then went into my day 2. Now, with the running, didn't have an issue. I was good at it, but it was difficult because you're doing the bleep test. And I don't know if you know about the bleep test, Ken, but
Mm-hmm.
as you keep running, you get tired, but the bleeps get faster and you got to keep up
Mm-hmm.
with the bleeps, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I managed to do that. And then I was doing the weights. And it's not just me doing it on my own. We're doing this as a group. There's a class of you, right?
Okay.
There was about
Mm-hmm.
16 people together, including me. And I was doing the weights. I was struggling. I was struggling hard, Ken,
Mm-hmm.
right? They timed you. And then when your time was up, they'll just dismiss you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was trying and I was trying and I was trying and I wasn't able to do it. Ken, I was the only one that failed in my class.
Wow.
Everyone else passed, everyone else was dismissed. I had a female officer there. Now, these female officers, they're built like female wrestlers. They're
Mm-hmm.
huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
She goes to me, you you're going to stay back. Right. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So everybody went, took their coats, took their bag, and it was just me and this female police officer. And she goes to me, you're going to do this again.
Mm.
So I was like, okay. And then she got in my face. She told me how pathetic I was. She told me, how the hell am I going to go out on the streets when you can't even pick up 35 kilos? Like, everyone's going to think you're a joke. She got in my face, right? And
Wow.
she didn't
Mm-hmm.
stop. And I had fumes coming out of my ears. I wanted to punch her. I was so annoyed, right? But I knew I couldn't punch a police officer now. That wouldn't look good on me, right? And I was just enraged. I was seeing red. And then she tapped me
Mm-hmm.
on the shoulder and she goes to me, stop. I'm like, okay. And she goes, look at your screen. She goes, you did it. You've passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy crap. So she did all of that. And by the end of it, I'm fuming. I'm seeing red, but yet I've passed, you know? And she goes to me, I knew you could do it. So
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from or what happened or how she even figured out what my points were and what to
Yeah.
trigger in order for
What to
me to
trigger?
be able to
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
pass this. No idea, right? So anyway, I end up passing. And all of a sudden now I'm being invited to come to the police academy to do the training. And I'm like, holy crap, I guess this is what I'm going to be doing now, right? And I was actually doing that for 6.5 years. Six and
Wow.
a half years I was a police officer. And I
Oh,
actually
wow.
did progress. And for the last year and a half, I was a detective.
Oh my, why? Congrats.
Thank you. But I realized it wasn't for me. I
Yeah.
didn't actually like being a detective because there's a lot of desk work, office work.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas being a police officer, you're out on the streets actually chasing people, right? Which was a lot
Yeah.
more fun for me. But anyway, I just carried on, and then it happened again, Ken. I went to sleep one night, woke up the next morning, jumped into the shower. Soon as the hot water touched my skin, it started burning. So I
Wow.
jumped out and ran to the mirror to have a look to find out what's going on, and my entire body had come out in a rash overnight. No
Whoa.
idea what had happened, what had gone on, because I was fine when I went to sleep the night before. And so I called up my friend whose mum is a nurse. And she basically says to me, Kay, get to the hospital now. And I was like, wow, what's going on? She goes, just get to the hospital now. So my brother drove me to the hospital, had all these tests
Mm-hmm.
done. And I remember waiting in the consultation room. And the doctor walked in. And as soon as he walked in, he looked straight at me and he goes to me, you were lucky to get here when you did. And I said to him, what do you mean? What's going on? He goes, if you didn't get here when you did, your throat would have closed up. So I said to him,
How?
exactly. I was like, how? What's going on here? I was fine last night. And he
Mm-hmm.
goes to me, this particular rash is brought up when your body is overly stressed.
Oh, wow.
And so they always say stress is a silent killer.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much of a stress, emotionally, physically, that and mentally, that this job was actually putting on my body. And clearly it was. And it was a build up because it doesn't just happen overnight, really, right? And so I was like, oh my goodness, like I never thought my life would be on the line outside of being on duty. I always
Yeah.
thought if I was to get her, it would be in the line of duty, right? And so now at this point, I was like, my life is on the line. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to quit this job. And that's what I did.
Wow.
I quit this job. I didn't have a plan B because I thought this was me until I retire because I've already been doing it for 6.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, life threw things at me. It wanted to redirect me to do something else. I didn't
Yeah.
know what that was. And then I was like, okay, I quit my job. I'm going to have to sort myself out, my health out first. That's priority. I've got enough money for 6 months to figure this out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm not going to look for a job. I'm just going to sort myself out first. And so that on the last day was a Friday, and my friend called me. She goes to me, Kay, why don't you come to this event? I'm hosting this event in central London. Come down and check it out. And I'm like, do you know what? Today's my last day. I can't be bothered. Don't want to speak to anybody. Want to be left alone. And she goes, no, just come
Mm-hmm.
down. And if you don't like it, then you can leave. And I was like, okay, fine. So I went down there and came. It was not my scene. There was a bunch of
Mhm.
people there, suited and booted. There were bankers, there were accountants, and I'm like, oh my God, what have I walked into? And I just did what anyone else would do when they go to an event, and that was walk to the bar and order a drink. And and so that's what I did. I went to the bar, ordered a drink, and as I waited for my drink to be prepared, this gentleman came over, and I'm thinking, oh
Mhm.
my God, another chat up line, you know.
Mhm.
And so he started asking me about my experiences, my qualifications, and my career and what I have been doing and skills. And I'm like, this is a really weird chat up line. And I said
Uh-huh.
to him, I go, I'm answering all these questions. And I'm like, but who are you?
Mhm.
And he goes to me, oh, he goes, I'm a member of parliament and I think you'll be awesome on my team. And I'm like, huh, okay. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I'm looking for a campaign manager. We have the elections going on. I'm part of Liberal Democrat Party and I want you to join my team. And Ken, I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else. Why
You're not
not?
doing anything.
Right. And then all of a sudden, I started working for politics with Liberal Democrat as their campaign manager. But Ken, I didn't
Wow.
last very long. I did not
What
last very
happened?
long.
What
So
happened?
I
Tell me what happened.
realized that politics has a lot more criminals than the prison system. And so it wasn't for me. I was like, if I got that sick as a police officer, politics maybe it wasn't a good idea to go into. And so I maybe lasted about 2 months, and I was like, nope, this isn't for me. And so I quit. And they were like, oh my God, no, when Liberal Democrat get in and we win the election, we want you there full time. And I was like, I started laughing. I go, Liberal, like that's never going to happen. And they're like, no, you've got to stay positive. I'm like, I'm a realist. It's not going to happen, right? Liberal Democrat didn't win in the end anyway, right? So anyway, I'd left that and I was like, okay, I'm back to square one again. Let's figure this
Mhm.
out. And then at that time, I hired a personal trainer because I'm trying to make sure, I'm healthy,
So you're healthy.
I'm not
Mhm.
stressed out. I'm working on me as well. And so I
Yeah.
had a personal trainer and she goes, Kay, have you ever been to a seminar? I'm like, a seminar like
Mhm.
university? She goes, no, a seminar when a speaker's on stage and they're talking about a particular topic.
Mhm.
It could be from mindset, it could be, some sort of self-improvement business. And I'm like, no, not really. And she goes, well, I'm going to one now. Why don't you come with me? And I'm like, okay. And she goes,
Your
and this
famous
is
words, Kay. It's okay. Why not?
great. Yeah. And then she goes to me, the person that's speaking, and his name is Dr. Martini. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay. At this point, I never heard of him. And she goes
Mhm.
to me, have you watched or read the book, The Secret? And I was like, no, I've never heard of it. And she goes, I advise you to read it. He is in
Mhm.
that book. I'm like, okay. And I was like, what is it about? She was like, read it. It's about mindset and how we all view, life as it is. And I'm like, oh, it sounds a bit woo woo to me. Like,
Mhm.
it's a bit out there for me. She goes, no, just read it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I read the book. It was really good. I even got the DVD afterwards, right?
Mhm.
Went to this seminar, was listening to what he had to say. And as we got to this venue, my personal trainer said to me, oh, I hope you don't mind. I brought another friend along with me as well. And I was like, oh no, more the merrier.
Mhm.
I met this friend and everything. And again, she started asking me, what are your experiences? What kind of jobs have you done? What do you want to do? What are your qualifications and all this? And at this time, I decided that I want to work in events. The reason why I
Mhm.
want to work in events is because it's a lot more positive environment to be in than it was when I was a police officer. It's very negative, right?
Mhm.
And you're there around people, you're talking to people, you get connections. It's such a positive
Yeah.
vibe, and I
Yeah.
wanted to go towards that side than the situation and the environment I was in previously.
Mhm.
And I was like, that would help my mind, mentally, emotionally, physically. That would be a better place for me to be in. And so I said to her, all right, this is what I've done, but I really want to get into events. Again, I have no qualifications,
Mhm.
no experience in events, never done it, but I've got an idea in my mind and this is what I want to do. And she goes to me, oh, that's fantastic. I go, why is that? She goes, well, I'm working for a company and they want to start an events division. And I think you'd be a
Wow.
really good person to help us out.
Mm.
And I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah, here's my number. Let me take yours. And she goes, I will contact you in a week because we actually have an event in London and it'll be great for you to come down and meet the team.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay. To be honest, I was like, things like this don't really happen.
Doesn't
I'm probably
happen.
never going to hear from her again.
Mhm.
A week went by and she contacted me. She sent me the
Wow.
details of the venue, the times, where it's at, everything, and told me, be there and meet the team. And
Mhm.
Ken, I was at the point of I'm not doing anything, so why the heck not, right? So I went down there, and what I didn't know that this company was actually an American company,
Mhm.
and the entire team, apart from a couple of people, were all American, so they
All
all flew
Americans.
down. And I was
Mhm.
talking to management; they were American. I'm a Brit. They loved my accent, right?
Mhm.
And I was talking to them for like 4 hours.
Wow.
And at the end of this, everyone was laughing. We had tears down our face. It was awesome. The events itself were about business. They were business
Mhm.
events. And they said to
Mhm.
me, you know what, we're just starting our events division, but we want to scale it. We want to grow it. We need to hire a team. The team that we've got right now, they're just here temporarily helping us out until we figure this all out. And they were like, we want you on our team. When are you able to
Mhm.
start? And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, I can start straight away. I'm not doing anything. And you know what?
Mhm.
There and then at that point, they started training me up,
Wow.
right? And
Wow.
then they said to me,
Uh-huh.
what are you doing in 2 days? I'm like, well, I don't have anything planned. They were like, great. Make sure your bags are packed and you're at the airport because your first event is going to be in Malaysia.
Wow.
And so my bags were packed. I was at the airport and flew to Malaysia. And that's where it all started. And I was flying country to city to country to city. Each week was a different place. I was living out of a suitcase. My food, drinks, everything, accommodation, flights were all paid for by the company. And on top, I was getting paid,
Wow.
right?
This is before COVID, right?
Before COVID. Yeah, before. This was in
Yeah.
2015.
Okay. Okay.
Right? So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Not only am I doing events, but I'm learning on the job, right? I'm
Mhm.
flying all over the world. Everything's being paid for. Like, I'm on top of my game right now.
Mhm.
And so as I kind of progressed and developed and I was shown the ropes on the job, I became the event manager, which was awesome. And I was working internationally. And then I was like, okay, I want to learn sales. I'm seeing the
Mhm.
sales team bringing in
Mhm.
all this money. And I found out how much
Mhm.
commissions they get. And I was like, I want a piece of that pie, right? How do I get into sales? And so I went up to the management team and I was like, look, I want to learn how to do sales. What can I do? And they were like, oh, we were waiting for you to come up and ask us that. I was like, really? Why didn't you just come up and ask me, earlier on? Why did you have to wait for me to figure this out? But anyway, they started training me and I did the low end ticket sales first of
Yeah.
$500, 997 and all this kind of stuff. And then slowly progressed and started doing the high ticket sales, which was like 60K, 100K,
Mhm.
150K. And within
Mhm.
a year and a half, I became the number one closer in the company.
Wow.
And then I
Wow.
remember my CEO contacted me and he said to me, he goes, I've just bought a resort in Costa Rica. We're going to be holding
Mm.
our mastermind events there. High ticket
Mhm.
clients, high ticket sales. And he goes, I want you to
Mhm.
be part of the team there. Would you be willing to up and move to Costa Rica?
Wow.
And then I was like, well, there's palm trees, there's the beach, there's the sun. Why the hell wouldn't I? And he goes, oh, and by the way, you're going to be getting your own apartment, which we'll be paying for, your own driver that will be driving you to the resort, back to your apartment, vice versa. We'll be paying for your food and drink. Hope that's okay. And I'm like, yeah. Are you
Now, Kay, how
definitely?
old were you when all of this was going on? How old were you?
Um, I was in my 30s. I was about 30. I was about 30, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Right?
So yeah, still young and having a blast. Yeah.
Right. And so I got to Costa Rica, amazing. Loved it. I love the sun, I
Hmm.
love the heat. I always say to people, I was born in the wrong country. You know, UK, all we see is rain and clouds.
Brain.
Right? And so I absolutely love the heat, and being in Costa Rica, it was amazing, right? And then they had
Hmm.
excursions there for the clients. They used to go, you know, on yachts, on jet skis, snorkeling, and
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
what? We got to join in too. And I'm like, really? I get paid to do this? So I was like, it could not get any better. And then Ken, it happened once again.
It happened again.
But
I'm
this
sorry, I'm
time,
laughing. It's just
it's crazy,
there's
right?
this
It's absolutely crazy. I
there's
know.
this
I
thing,
think that
Kay. There's this thing that I keep telling people that I went to this ashram, and this guru said this thing to me, and it jumped from her lips straight inside of my being. She said, "Let life disturb your comfort," and it sounds like you are in the midst of this for several years. Life is just disturbing your comfort.
definitely, definitely. But the thing is, if it didn't disturb my comfort, then I wouldn't
Yes,
know what I'm actually capable of doing, right?
exactly,
But
exactly.
this time, it had nothing to do with my health. It actually had
Mm,
nothing to do with me this time. I was there in Costa Rica for 3 weeks, had a time of life for 3 weeks. The
mhm.
company then shut down.
Whoa.
All of a sudden, I've been evicted out of my apartment because the company can no longer pay for it.
To pay anything, yeah.
I
Yeah.
had no food and water because the company's accounts got shut down. There was so now I'm in Costa Rica in a foreign country. I don't speak the language and I'm homeless.
Wow.
And once I realized what had just happened,
Hmm.
I couldn't stop laughing to myself. I was in hysterics, right? I'm like, this is just insane. It's crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous right now. And I saw my coworkers on the other side of the room, and they were annoyed, they were frustrated, they were blaming the company, they were pulling out their hair, they were crying, and they
Hmm.
looked at me and they go, "Do you realize what's just happened?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I'm laughing, right? Because it's so ridiculous." And they're looking at me like, "What is wrong with you? What's going on right now?" And I said to them, I was like, "Do you not realize?" And they're like, "Realize what?" I go, when you think of the Tony Robbins of the world, the Les Browns of the world, they were all homeless at one point and now they're multi-millionaires. That means
Yeah.
I'm going to be a millionaire. Because in my mind, I was like, you have to be homeless at one point to become a millionaire, right? But
Yeah.
then I realized that my superpower is having a completely different perspective on everything.
Yes, yes,
And that's what got me through it. And if I didn't
yes.
have this different perspective, I will
Yeah.
be in this emotional turmoil.
Hmm.
And when you're in emotional turmoil, you cannot find a solution,
Exactly.
right? You're so distracted, your vision is so foggy, you cannot focus on anything. And so because I had this different perspective and I was actually laughing about it and couldn't believe that I'm going to be a millionaire soon, right?
Hmm.
I was able to get creative, think outside the box to find a solution.
Yeah. Yep.
And what I did was I realized that even though the company shut down, the resort itself was actually set up as a separate entity and it was still
Hmm.
open. But it was being fed by the main company to keep it going. Now the main company wasn't there, which
Hmm.
meant they still had bills to pay and they still
Yep.
had staff to pay, but had no money coming in.
Hmm.
So I went up to the resort manager and told her this, and I said to her, I can show you how you can bring clients in. I can show you branding, promotion, marketing, all that good stuff that you need right now to keep this resort going. And she goes
Hmm.
to me, how? And I showed her. And she goes
Hmm.
to me, how the hell do you know how to do all this stuff? And I'm like, at these events, I'm at the back of the room absorbing all this
Yeah.
information from
All the
all these different
information.
experts, from all these gurus, right? And
Hmm.
learning bits and pieces of how to do this, in business. And
Yeah.
so I showed, and she goes to me, but we don't have the money. We don't have the money for photographer and videos and all this stuff we need. And I'm like, you don't need it. We already have it.
Hmm.
Right. And I showed her how you can create new content from the content we already have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How to promote it. And a lot of these platforms are free,
Yes.
right? Or cost very little money. And then started bringing in clients. And I'm thinking, oh, if I can do this for this company, right? Maybe I can go to the other resorts, other restaurants on the coast and do the same thing. But what I said to her, I was like, I will show you how to do this. I will do this with you. But in return, I need a roof over my head. I need food and I need water. Right? I'm not asking for anything else, just the basics.
Yeah.
Right? And then I went to these other places and asked them for a little bit of money so I can raise the money to get my flight back home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I did that for about, I think it was just over 4 weeks. I was able to raise the money, make sure I had a roof over my head, food in my stomach, and water to drink. And then eventually got a flight to get back home, right? And so once I did that, I got back home and I was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? I've got to figure out what I'm going to do in regards to finances. And so I started calling up all my different connections. And then there was one person that said, oh, there's a guy in Australia and he wants to build his events division. And I'm like, ding, ling, 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 that's me right there. And so I spoke to this guy. He flew me out to Australia, met with him, his team, and he was doing good. He was making like $1 million a year, which isn't too shabby, but he said that he knows he can do better and he wants to make more. He wants to have more events. And so I went through, structure, procedures, processes, how we can change it, make it better, make it bigger, hired new people on the team, train them up. And in the first 4 months of working with him, he made his first $1 million. So by the end of the year, he tripled his money.
Wow.
And at that point, I was like, oh my goodness, like I can do this for all these other businesses. Why the hell am I not starting my own business? And that's when Uncensored Society was born.
That is awesome. That is interesting. I love that story. It's so much involved in that. How you get from one place to another. Okay.
Yeah, it really was. It was just like, all right, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Because
And so
the thing is, what I realize is that everyone has choices. You may think you don't, but you do. You have a choice on whether you want to change your life or you want to stay where you are. Now, you can make a choice, and if you don't like it, you can say, I don't want to do this anymore. You have that choice, right? Just because you said yes to it doesn't mean you got to keep saying yes to it, even if you don't like it.
Yes.
And so I was in that mindset that, okay, let me give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just say this isn't working for me anymore. But again, with all the different turmoil that happens, there are lessons to be learned, right? Good and bad. And that's why I came to a point that I'm not gonna fight it. Why am I gonna fight it? Let's just go with it and see what happens. Because there's a reason for it all, but we just don't know it at the time. And so all the skills that I built up and all the things that I went through was for me to be a stronger person when it comes to business. Because all those skills now I can now put into business and then also inspire, motivate other people as well.
People, yes. Yeah. And so this is a beautiful story. I love it. Okay. And this is what I'm telling people about the process. That's why I come on and tell us what they're doing today. It's beautiful to have that the accomplishment, but people like yourself and other people right now is not the final story. It's just where you are right now. And so it's for us to go and grab that. But how did you get there? Like what you talked about, those different incidents and still how life came in. Kay, trying to tap on your shoulder. This is not it. Once you keep moving, life has a way that as you move, it'll keep tapping on you, and then some situation will happen, because that's what's the beauty about this life that we call this thing we call life, is that situations come all the time, and there is a situation that will present itself to you. But like you said, you have to be in that in an awareness, a sort of a hey, and then you begin to wake up. You're like, hey, I can do this. I can, because they, as you say, they are caught up because their perspective has brought on certain things into their life: depression, anxiety, all the other things come into their life and keep them in a emotional state that they're not able to make a constant decision on. And so I try to tell people you have to come out of a emotional situation with your and make as Spock would say, it is not logical. You have to come out to let your mind make that logical stuff. And none of us know, none of us, and that's what
Yeah.
makes life so exciting, is that every situation creates new opportunities to laugh and to cry and to grow, and it makes life flavorable. And so you have such, I love when you were here, you were there, but when you put it collectively, all of your situation to this place now that you have gained wisdom that you can now assimilate and feed to someone where they can actually taste it, understand it, and create results like you've done as people. So that's a beautiful thing. I love your story and your accomplishment. So now, how did you write this book, Kay? How did you come about? Go, okay, let me put this in a book form.
So again, that happened by complete accident, right? So for a long while, I knew that I wanted to write a book. I knew what I wanted to write about, and my story, and like the different peer pressures and people not having faith in you, and you being the odd one out, and not doing what everyone else should be doing, and living life completely different. And so I knew I wanted to write this book, and it was at one of these events that I actually found a book writing coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, "Oh my God, I need you. I need you to help me write my book. I have no clue how to start or do it." Right. So he goes to me, "Oh, awesome." He goes, yeah, I can totally have you as one of my students." And he goes, "And if your CEO is okay with it, I'll give it to you for half price." And I was like, "Really?" And I looked at the CEO, I was like, "You're totally gonna do this for me, aren't you?" And he goes, I was like, "Yeah, you are, right? You are." And then he was like, "Okay, then." I was like, "Perfect." And then now there wasn't no excuses. I had a book writing coach that was actually showing me how to actually set all this up. And I actually locked myself in a room for 30 days, wrote the entire book out in 30 days, and then had my book launch in 2-3 months later in Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And that's where I got the award. And guess what?
Mm-hmm.
It was Bob Proctor and Dr. DeMartini who presented me with my award,
Oh,
which was
really?
really cool. Yes. Which is because it kind of went round circle,
Right,
right?
full
Not
circle.
knowing the secret and then going to his event and all of that stuff happening, it just went round. And I was like, this is freaking amazing.
That is absolutely beautiful. Full circle in life. It's
Yeah.
precious. I know that you are such a busy woman, and I thank you for coming by. And I know that you have a few appointments that we had talked about, and I want to make sure that you make that. But I wanted to thank you for coming, bring up such beautiful stories and such tangible things that we can touch and feel and get excited and laugh about. But the results that it gave to you and the people that you have served in there through your life. I just want to thank you so much for coming by to Threads of Enlightenment. I'm going to put all of your things together and point all of my people to you to get to your podcast, because I listened to a couple of it, and the advice that you give to people about businesses and all of the good stuff. All you entrepreneurs that are listening, that means every single one of you guys that have a podcast or are thinking about starting a job, you get to Kay's site, and she has lots of information there that will save you a ton of stress like she had, that was showing up in all kinds of forms. So she hired someone to teach her about books. Here you go, guys. Grab her, grab a couple of her books, listen to the podcast, because in those podcasts, in the books, that's her personally with all the information and the wisdom that she has. So, okay, I want to thank you for coming by, and I know you have to run, but thank you. I love your story and I adore it, and that you trusted us enough to share all of of that beauty that you had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope a lot of your listeners take a lot away from a lot away from this episode.
I hope so, because I did. I've been laughing from the time we started, and I am so excited about some of the things. I'm going to be following you, and I'm going to bring you back so that you can the next stage that you get to, because I can see you, getting and making all that big money and the millions, as you said.
It is gonna
Since you were
happen. It is.
since you're homeless and so forth, I gotta keep an eye on you.
Right.
So, but thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate it. And I will make sure that everyone comes to you, and that you can guide them and help them to make the changes necessary in their life. Thank you so much, Kay.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, bye bye. Everyone who's listening to this podcast, we hope to continually help you to learn how to embrace moments of darkness, because it is in the darkness that we learn how to develop and use our abilities to truly see those parts of ourselves, often invisible to us, in the light. It becomes your responsibility to navigate through all of your trials, to find out who you truly are, and begin your journey to loving yourself, which is possibly one of the most difficult things you will ever do in your life. To love yourself and to find the real you, but always remember to enjoy the journey. Thank you for coming by. Please subscribe, and if you can support us financially, we deeply appreciate it.